cheap cost of living, all four seasons, and friendly people. These are some of the reasons why people make Columbus their home. But imagine a location that's masquerading itself as a paradise. From drug problems to terrible traffic congestions and everything else in between, I'm going to talk to you about the downsides of Columbus that no other realtor is willing to share. Here are the top reasons why people actually regret making that move to Columbus. And hey, if any of these things actually turn you off, then Columbus might not even be the right fit for you. What's up guys, Kagan here, your favorite local realtor. And listen, Columbus as a whole is definitely going through a lot of pain. I was talking to one of my buddies, he's lived here for over 10 years, and he said, dude, I'm priced out of my own home. Man, that's pretty crazy when you think about it. You see, Columbus is expected to have over 3 million residents by 2030. And with all these massive billion-dollar projects coming here left and right, what we're seeing is the people that actually live here being priced out of their locations. It's a small city, but it's growing. It's growing super duper fast. So all of that is gonna have its growing pains with it. You know, when your hamstring used to hurt because you were getting taller? Yeah, I get that. And as a city, we have to respect that as a whole, but it's not something that people really necessarily enjoy. A lot of the people that I talk to, they're not too happy about the fact that the traffic is more congested, which we'll talk to, and they're not happy about the grocery prices rising and things of that nature as well. And obviously with more and more people coming here, taxation is going to get affected too. We're going to discuss all these things further into the video, but one of the biggest things that I want to add is we are a city that's developing and we're a city that's migrated a lot. So what we're seeing more than anything else is people want to make Columbus home, but Columbus doesn't have the infrastructure for that quite yet. You see, COTA, or the Central Ohio Transit Authority, they're developing, but they can't develop at the speed that people are making that migration. And you would be surprised by this just as I am, right? You would think people are going to Texas or Florida or all these other locations, but they're coming here because of the job opportunities, the cheap cost of living, and everything else. Now, the other caveat and the other catch-22 about this is if one person realizes this, every person realizes this. So take all that into consideration. Remember, the traffic is not going to be fun, and there's so many things with the cities that it's always growing. It's like our skyscrapers are filled with yellow cranes that it's like orange is the new black. Wait, I messed up that joke. I messed up that line. I meant to say it's filled with orange. You get what I'm trying to say, right? Like it's a lot of skyscrapers that are being built and we're seeing so much development happen as a whole, which is a great thing for the city, just not great right now. It's like when I was 5'5", I'm 6'4" now, just as a heads up. But it's like when I was 5'9" and I was getting taller, I could feel my body aching and going through pains. I'm glad that I'm tall now because I can play basketball easier, but let me tell you, that journey, the fact that my legs were hurting all the time, yeah, that's Columbus right now. So I was dating this girl a few months back, right? We went for a walk in the park, I know, romantic. But she was sneezing like it was nobody's business. And I was like, yo, are you okay? See, Columbus is a nightmare for allergy sufferers, especially because we're in the Ohio Valley. Now, let me tell you, it gets pretty here in the springtime with all the flowers and all that blooms, but it also tends to show itself in the form of pollen, mold, and other allergens as a whole. And for families with young children, this is going to be a new nightmare. It's going to require new medical attention and also new air purifiers all about. So make sure you have that in consideration, right? We are in the Ohio Valley and we do rank pretty high when it comes to all the allergens that happen in the springtime. And there's a lot of things going on with Columbus, especially just due to the nature of our proximity to other locations and kind of where we're centrally located, that all these things have to be taken into account. And let me tell you, it's a good thing it was because of Columbus, because I was ready to take her to the hospital. Now, a few weeks back, I was just coming home from the gym. I was exhausted first and foremost, and there was this guy that was right behind my car. I think it's called tailgating. I'm not sure what the specific word for it is. And let me tell you, younger me, we would have had a pretty massive problem. Now, as I matured up, and obviously I realized that this guy is probably going through some stuff. He doesn't get girls, you know, the whole shebang. I realized I had to be more mature about it. But our congestion of traffic is kind of crazy. Make sure you have that in consideration as well. A lot of people during rush hour, well, they don't really know how to drive, which is kind of annoying. Now, after coming home from a long days of work, the last thing that you want to have to do is deal with all this rigmarole that's happening in the roads, especially from people that don't know how to drive at all. I'm passionate about this, can you tell? And the worst part about this for you specifically and for us is the fact that it takes away from our family time, from our leisure time, and from us being able to do what we want to do. So make sure you have all this in consideration. And if you have the opportunity to actually find employment in a close enough suburb or city or municipality close to you, I said it correctly that time, then I would do that. You know, I was talking to a friend of mine, they said, I thought, Gagan, living closer to the downtown Columbus meant I would have better schools, but we actually ended up sending our kid to a private school. And yeah, it's kind of apparent when it comes to these things. Suburbs and areas like Dublin, New Albany, and the Olentangy School District are fantastic, but the City School District of Columbus is underfunded, overstaffed, and overcrowded as a whole. When your children are going to school, obviously you want to make sure they're going to the best school possible. So when you are thinking about making that move to Columbus, just understand one fundamental thing. The schooling, it's not the same all across the board. And if you want a good school, you're gonna have to pay a pretty penny for it. It's like the saying, pay the piper. And for the most part, a lot of our clients, this is definitely number one or number two as to the top things they're looking for when they're making that move here. The first thing is usually the zoo. Now, I don't have any kids just yet, but eventually when I do have children, I wanna make sure they're getting the best education possible. I wanna make sure they're not being told what to think as more so how to think. I want to make sure that my kids aren't just being in an area in which they're only going to school, but they can develop genuine friendships, a sense of community, and overall a sense of belonging as a whole. And if you're watching this, I'm guessing you're in the exact same boat. All the schools are not made equally, and it's not me saying this, it's niche.com, it's the data, it's Neighborhood Scout, and all these other websites that we're using to collect and converse these pieces of conversations with. Remember, wherever you go, there's always going to be a disparity when it comes to educational factors. For you, the question is, are you okay with that, or are you looking for something more specific? Now, a buddy of mine had older parents, and he made Columbus home again just to take care of them. He came back here from SoCal. He told me one thing, Gagan, it's so different. And I'm like, dude, what do you expect? It's a Midwestern city. But what we're realizing is a lot of people, especially with the tech growth, think Columbus is gonna be this hippity-doo-dah location, when in reality, we're usually asleep by like 9:30. Now, let me tell you, places that are in close enough proximities, like Chicago, or maybe even New York City, if you wanna consider that close, they're definitely a lot more on the ravenous side, let's just say that. Columbus is a Midwestern city at heart, albeit we definitely have a lot of technological growth and we're seeing more of a cultural injection as a whole. We're not a place that you're coming to have a night out. You gotta go to like Cali for that. But for the most part, make sure you have all that in understanding, because when people do migrate here, especially from locations like Seattle and even Austin, Texas, they tend to be a little bit disappointed with all that doesn't exist. So I'm not saying it's not prevalent, I'm not saying that we don't have it at all, I'm just saying as a location, we're not gonna have that in as much quantity as the other places that you're used to from. And hey, if you're not a partier and you enjoy going to sleep at like 9:30, I feel you, I'm the same way. I know you're probably like, Gagan just saying this. No, look at this right there. It's 10 o'clock and my camera and my phone is going to be shut off and we go to sleep. You see, one of our team members helped a buyer of ours find a property in Reynoldsburg. And we told them one thing, look out for the property taxes. And they did. They were still shocked at the number that came to be. Now, while our income taxes are on the bottom third of the United States economy, I think 3.5%, our property taxes and sales taxes are definitely on the higher end. For the most part, when you're thinking about buying a nice new home, especially in Dublin or even in New Albany, you have to understand that property taxes are definitely up there. Now, we're not as bad as places like New Jersey, but it's also New Jersey. I don't know why anyone would want to live there, sorry. But at the same time, oh, this is gonna get me in trouble. But at the same time, you wanna make sure that when you are thinking about making a move, from a financial standpoint, you have all these things into consideration. Again, places like Upper Arlington, Dublin, and New Albany definitely are going to be the upper echelon. As we can read here, in New Albany, homeowners can expect to pay effectively property taxes between 1.6 and 1.75%, depending on the assessed value of the property. For a home valued at $600,000, that can be like $9,000 to $10,000 in just property taxes alone. Whoa, that's a pretty penny. And especially with all the municipalities and all the other things that exist, it gets kind of confusing to make sure that you understand every single thing here. And that's why you want to partner with a fantastic agent that understands the market, that knows what's going on, and that can ultimately help you on this journey. If you want some information or just want to talk to our team about what specifically we do and how we can help you, all of our information is in the description down below. Would love the chance to talk if you're moving here in 9 days, 90 days, or even 9 years. And the other consideration is all of this, especially for new build, which is kind of our bread and butter, is going to be more separated than you think. You see, the first taxes is going to be just for the lot. Then the home that's built on the lot is definitely going to have a higher amount of taxes, and it's going to jump up holistically. So make sure you have all of those things in consideration and you can have the financial aspects of it taken down. And I mean, always ask for an estimated post-construction tax assessment so you know specifically what you're getting yourself into and you have no hidden surprises. And things like the homestead exemption can definitely help you, but if you don't actually qualify for that and you're in your 30s and 40s, then you're kind of out of luck. But hey, if you can get all the numbers to make financial sense, you can look at the buy down rates and you understand all the things you're traversing yourself into, then you're chilling. You know, I think it's time for some B-roll footage. Let's roll it.
Racing to the finish line, seatbelt, fast whips, got a win in mind. See me when I skirt off, ain't no 10 in mine. Friends keep saying slow down, should've seen the signs. Riding down the street.
Now, when we were younger, we would figure out where the dudes were hanging out by where the bikes were. We'd walk around and say, okay, cool, 5 bikes here, we're going to this guy's house. Now, in Columbus, you really can't do that. It's kind of weird, especially since we're adults. Combining with this, bikes will not get you anywhere. Literally. See, Columbus is a city designed for, well, cars, not necessarily people. Now, albeit COTA, or the Central Ohio Transit Authority, is definitely working their best to help with all the urban sprawl that's happening and the population increase as a whole. But if you're coming to Columbus and you don't have a car, it's going to be rough. Let me tell you. Now, while places like Short North and downtown Columbus are walkable, for the most part, in other proximities and other locations, that's just definitely not the case. And especially with the suburban crawl that's happening, it's going to be more difficult to actually get to one specific location. You see, to get to downtown from Dublin, it's going to be around 20 minutes, unless you've got the 5 o'clock traffic, or the 8 o'clock traffic, or the 12 o'clock lunch traffic. You want to make sure you have all these things in consideration. Now, I want to preface something. Our traffic isn't bad, like places like Denver, Colorado. It's not as bad as places like California or Miami, and I have been to every single one of those locations. God help them. We're not bad in comparison to these locations, but a place like Rochester, New York, where my family's from, we're pretty bad. So you want to make sure, dependent on where specifically you're coming from, you have that in consideration. And if you are someone that's actively a pedestrian and you enjoy public transport, you don't have a car, it's going to be a lot more difficult to traverse. Now, a lot of the clients that we're working with that move here, they've got a job security, which means they've got cars as well. So for you, if that's not a problem, obviously, you know, don't worry about that as a whole. But if someone like maybe your daughter or your son is thinking about going to these locations or wanting to travel from here to there, there's definitely going to be that play where it's like, how do you specifically get there if you don't have a car? So that cost might add up as well. And I know it's an ironic thing to think about, but if your kids want to go play, you might probably have to buy them a newer car, which is a little catch-22 and kind of, well, pretty annoying. You know, with us being a Midwestern area, a lot of people confuse Columbus for places like Colorado and Montana as a whole. And I'm not kidding. You might be in the comment sections like, what are you talking about? I'm serious. People think they're going to come to Columbus and they're going to have these beautiful array of mountain scenes. Now, albeit we've got fantastic areas to hike, we've got some of the most amazing and beautiful parks and some super scenic views, you're not going to have that here, and that's not an expectation that you should have. Albeit just around 45 minutes outside of Columbus, you've got beautiful waterfalls all around. It's not like the city of Columbus is going to have mountains and beautiful, beautiful areas that you can see. For the most part, when you are thinking about making that move and you're an outdoors enthusiast, take that into consideration. Now, obviously, there's always going to be locations in proximity that you can go, that you can enjoy, and we've never ran out of activities to do as a whole. But if you do enjoy and want that scenic view, Columbus as a whole is a city that you're definitely going to have to look more into. And you know, combining with this too, one of the things that we have to understand is we are not this massive city yet. And combining with this, there's definitely going to be a FOMO for bigger cities. Now look, we're definitely growing and we've definitely got more of the cultural aspect of it taken into account. But one thing that you got to understand is even if you're a family and you're just looking for more areas to eat out of, or you're looking for more things to do, you don't really have the same diversity as places like Atlanta, Chicago, or even places like Austin or Dallas, Texas. You see, as a city, Columbus is definitely having its sprawl, and we're definitely seeing more people bring their culture with them, bringing their food, bringing their ethnicities, and bringing their pride. The one caveat to all this is the fact that we're not there just yet. So if you're looking for this multitude of exploration and you're looking for this multitude of things to actually do, just remember Columbus is still developing in those fronts as well. Now we're gonna get there, I'm sure of it, but as of right now, we've still got some work to do. Now, one of the biggest things that you gotta understand, especially days like today, our winters are sometimes bad, sometimes good. Now, on a summer day, when it gets like 80 or 90 degrees, everyone's happy, and then the very next day, it can get down to like 60 or 50. There is a very sporadic nature when it comes to the weather as a whole, and make sure you have that in understanding. You see, just a few weeks back, our snow was absolutely okay, and now we're getting hit with like a foot. Now, let me tell you, in terms of everything that's happening here, make sure that you got all-wheel drive cars. Make sure that you got all these things taken into account. Because if you're someone that just wants the warmer weather, I don't know why you're looking at Columbus. Places like Tampa, Texas, or even Arizona might be the move. And we also get tornadoes. Like, that's something that people don't realize. We are a Midwestern area. Now, it's not as bad as Kansas with Dorothy, but it does tend to happen in the outskirts of Columbus. You know, when people are obviously thinking about making that move, and when you're thinking about making a move, one of the biggest things that I want to tell you is because of the weather and because of the traversing of the weather as a whole, your heating bill tends to go up pretty nicely. You're going to be in traffic a little bit longer because people don't know how to frickin' drive, and you're also going to have to deal with SAD, or seasonal affective disorder. Because a lot of people, when they are living in Ohio, funny enough, they're going down south to Florida for like 6 months throughout the year for number one, the no income tax, and number two, just so they can have some sunlight. Because vitamin D is super important for the body. I'm not a doctor, I was studying to be a doctor, but for the most part, it's super duper important. Now, listen, if you're living in Columbus, did I miss anything? I'm always curious about what our local people think, and if I did miss something, please put it in the comment sections below. Are any of these things that are actually gonna turn you off from living in Columbus, or are these things that you already knew that you're already gonna be okay with? Because I'm genuinely curious when people do watch these videos, how far along in the journey they really are. Listen, I did a video about what's coming to Columbus and what all the new things look like. That video is going to be right here. Watch it, and I'll see you soon. Bye.